Surrealism is the art movement that I mostly associate with, as it explores the unconscious mind through symbolism and metaphor. Understanding this movement can help the photographer to free the unique voice that is buried within. By the turn of the 20th century, Sigmund Freud published The Interpretation of Dreams, where he introduced the theory of the unconscious mind. It grew in popularity as artists, poets, and writers were drawn to the theory as a way into the creative mind. They began experimenting using some of Freud's methods. Artists produce works that were unnerving, a form of altered reality, or surreality, as they experimented with liberating the imagination through the unconscious mind. Delving into the unconscious mind often revealed repressed feelings and desires. Symbolism was used to convey meaning. Use of dream-like images and imagination gone wild images were part of the movement. Images were often bizarre and exaggerated. Salvador Dali was a surrealist artist who was obsessed with Freud's theories of the unconscious mind. His bizarre images were full of symbols and exaggerations. He wanted to get past the rational linear mind into the imaginative mind of the unconscious. Some mark the end of surrealism movement with his death, although surrealism is still very much alive today. My art is my reaction to the world, the way I see it. A lot of it fits into the category of surrealism, as this is an art movement that allows for deep expression. It can be a feeling of awe. It might be a story I feel compelled to tell. It could be philosophical, psychological, or political. Or maybe I just want to play and have fun. But mostly, it starts with a quiet inner voice, the voice from the unconscious mind, beckoning me, tapping me on the shoulder, yearning to reveal itself. If you're new to Photoshop, a good place to start is making a selection and applying a filter. Spooky was one of the first pieces I did using Photoshop. It's just one image taken in Hyde Park. I made a selection and applied several filters. It was Halloween, and I was just having fun learning. Learning to work with layers came next. This allowed me to put images together. I was thrilled with the ability to express my inner world and to tell deeper stories. It's a simple image of a winding staircase with various filters applied and a child's eye repeated 7 times, each on a separate layer. It was the observer in me just having fun with the imagination. The eyes symbolized ideas escaping from deep within the unconscious mind, rising to the surface like bubbles. Note the S-curve formed by the eyes, as well as the spiral. Bleeding Hearts was a very simple, surrealistic image, made with just 2 images but 7 layers. I was exaggerating the meaning of bleeding hearts by animating them, with the same sad eyes repeated a number of times. It's best to start with a good sharp image. It makes your workflow easier, and allows for a more professional looking final image. Here, I was learning to use the eraser tool to blend the images together. You can see the story of wisdom, an old man with an open book in the sky. See how uneven the blending is, especially in the top of the head? The beard was not blended into the background and stands out too much. I've learned a lot since then. This is a far more recent image. By now, I've mastered the techniques of blending and blend modes. I used a high feather to blend parts of the face that needed to go into the wall, and a low feather for areas that I wanted to stand out from the wall. The clone stamp, healing brush, vignette, copy and paste, patch tool, hue saturation, eyedropper, curves, feathering, and blend modes were used to create the final wall image. The final wall image has more depth and leading lines. It looks simple, but it takes a lot of tools to create it. The old wall symbolizes a story wrapped in history, a movement from slavery into the dignity and pride of being a Black American. It's Black Lives Matter, created a few weeks before the birth of the movement. Spring Bloom was an image that came together very quickly. Mastery in blending was crucial to its success. As I was taking some shots of the beautiful spring flowers in James Gardens, I was already seeing the background, the headpiece, the shoulders, and the accessories. The background color was changed and some sections of the flower were removed. The headpiece was added and blended into the background. The shoulders were skewed and blended into the first two layers. All other flowers in the headpiece and the brooch are the same flower repeated a number of ways on different layers using a variety of blend modes. The addition of the face on the final layer completed the image. This was a spiral staircase where I applied filters to selections and was learning to use the paintbrush to create stars. The words of Robert Browning were in my mind. Ah, but a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for? This is a testament to my work ethic. I am constantly climbing higher, learning more, perfecting my skills, and in the process, feeling the joy of creating. Into the light is the movement from the unconscious self into the light of consciousness. This is the creative process. It is also a movement from the outer world into the inner light, the light of the soul. Into the light can be interpreted a number of ways depending on the viewer. A few months before my mother's death, my niece and my mother were sitting on opposite ends of the table by the window, and I noticed the window reflection in both their eyes. Can you find my mother's 97-year-old eyes? A realistic image would require the source of light either from the left or the right, but this is now the inner light, making the outer light redundant. Awakened for me is the awakening of the artist in me. The Etobicoke Camera Club was my stage as I entered all the competitions the club had to offer. There were many wins or curtain calls, but the one that I valued the most is the discovery of the voice within. You can see all the symbols used to create Awakened. They are taken outside a haunted house in the city. One image looked like a stage, and I thought of Shakespeare's quote, "All the world's a stage." The old curtain made me think of a curtain call. When I saw the old gauze with the holes, I thought of myself, old but rich in texture. The addition of the eye of a child some weeks later led to the unfolding of the story. Awakened is a story for all of humanity. Have you ever had the feeling of discovering something new within you? Have you awakened to the artist within you? Carl Jung was a student of Freud's who later broke away from him, rejected some of his theories, and expanded on others. What Freud and Jung had in common was a belief that residing within all of mankind was the unconscious self, which could be hidden from the self and from others. They believed that within the unconscious self was a wealth of creativity, as well as repressed memories and feelings. They called the repressed self the shadow. For me, the unconscious self is the repository of all my ideas. The shadow, imagination, the intuitive self, and the collective mind reside here. Art for me is the voice of the unconscious expressing itself in the light of consciousness. My camera acts as a window into this inner world, and as the light hits the sensor of the camera to expose the image, the stories from my unconscious are exposed to the light of consciousness. This image shows the struggle of bringing the shadow to consciousness. It is a peeling of the layers to expose the wound. I tucked a rose petal into the wound to symbolize the promise of transformation. This image is both personal and collective. Many found this image powerful, others found it disturbing, and almost everyone reacted to it. The story started with the peeling bark of a tree. I took some shots and stayed with the feeling as I sat in James Gardens. A few weeks later, I was looking through some images of my niece, and the tree bark images came to mind. I placed the bark over the image of my niece, and the story unfolded. Watch this image change with the addition of the tree bark. It was first turned to black and white. The addition of earth colors and reds, especially in the eyes and the wound, helped to create. This is another complex piece about the shadow, done a few years later. The right side of the image is the shadow side, the part that has gone unconscious. Conforming to society often means hiding parts of who we are from ourselves and from others. This shadow stores feelings such as anger or feelings of inadequacy, and these feelings can surface in the most inopportune times. At the collective level, Me Too, gay rights, Black Lives Matter, transgender identity, all these movements are a result of oppression. The zipper becomes the symbol of oppression. Jung took Freud's theories of the unconscious mind to a new depth with his theories of the collective unconscious. He observed that myths and fairy tales may vary across cultures, but the underlying themes are the same across cultures and history. He called these recurring themes or images archetypes. The archetype expresses itself first and foremost in metaphors, Jung was quoted as saying. These patterns of behavior and feelings are common to all of humanity. See how these myths and archetypes played out for me at the Canadian National Exhibition. The Silk Road Lantern Festival at the CNE highlighted how the East and the West learned from one another along the trade routes called the Silk Road. There were myth lanterns and fairy tale lanterns. As I took photos, I thought of Jung's theory of the collective unconscious and how myths and fairy tales may vary across cultures, but the underlying themes or archetypes are the same. I was especially drawn to the Atlas myth, poor Atlas, carrying the world on his shoulder. He planned his escape many times but failed. Such endurance and strength, and yet so burdened. This myth has inspired writers and artists throughout history. What was it saying to me? Near Atlas was the dragon lantern. In the West, hero myths portray the dragon as scary, powerful, and evil. It must be conquered and slain. But in the East, the dragon is a symbol of strength and inner power and is ridden and embraced. Could the East have something to teach me? I made a selection of the dragon and used polar coordinates, transform, oil filter, and liquefy to make it more expansive. I wanted to accentuate its power and give it the feel of encompassing the earth. Doubling the claw added to the effect. It was when I put the two images together that the story unfolded. This story is a letting go of all the burdens that bind us and weigh us down, and riding the creative fire within us. Watch my interpretation of the story. Surrealism is full of highly imaginative symbols and metaphors from the unconscious mind of the creator. Abstract art is a movement deeper into the unconscious, a movement beyond definable symbols and metaphors into the universal language, the language of the soul. We will next look at the qualities of abstract art, the last art movement in this presentation.